had resurrected this club from dire, dire straits.
There's John Cahoon!
All of a sudden, with the kind of team that's come out of nowhere, and people wanted us to win it.
Dimos, yes!
The bonding that was there will last forever.
This is my story. Great chance for Hearts. How's this for a polished finish?
We drink as a team, we eat as a team, we have fun like a team, and we have certain occasions that we cry like a team.
Everybody in professional sport wants to be first.
1 point and the title was Hearts.
While who way back in August, blessed with a second sight, the seventh son of a seventh son, could have foreseen Hearts on the very last day of the season playing for the championship, requiring only 1 point.
The final day of the 85-86 season. 1 miserly point. That's all Hearts need to become champions.
We were getting excited, there was no doubt about that. You know, the players, the club hadn't won anything since the early 60s, and the players desperately wanted to be part of the side that brought the first silverware back to Gorgie Road.
We had a camaraderie that we thought would take us right through to the final day at Dens Park and then at Hampden to actually not just win 1 trophy, win 2 trophies.
Indeed, it wasn't just a championship at stake. It was a veritable silver rush. The major crown jewels of the Scottish game could be theirs on 2 glorious back-to-back Saturdays. It was, in truth, an incredible turnaround, because no one really expected Hearts to do anything that season. Especially, it seems, the BBC cameraman who missed John Colquhoun's opening day goal against Celtic. It was a changing picture in more ways than one. A 1-1 draw that day may have looked hopeful, but Hearts' next game against St Mirren saw them lose focus totally.
Great chance for Rooney. And that's the 6th.
A 6-2 drubbing was hardly inspiring, and Hearts' miserable start to the season saw them languishing third bottom of the table with only 5 points after 8 games. And with 2 points for a win in these days, climbing the table was going to be a hard task.
We had a shocking start to the season. People were talking about us being relegated rather than challenging for a spot in Europe, which was ultimately our aim.
But I remember sitting with my club secretary, having been beaten by Clydebank, I think, scratching my head at the end of the first quarter of the 85-86 season, saying to Les Porteous, what are we going to do here?
Good question. Hearts looked like they'd selected reverse gear instead of preparing for a championship race. They were a club who had been in serious decline since the 60s. Supporters had evaporated from Tynecastle's wide open terraces, and funds were in equally short supply at the bank. And trophies? Relics of a bygone age. Relegated for the first time in their history in 1977, Hearts had then yo-yoed several times between Premier and First Divisions. It looked like the first throes of death. Then, in 1981, came the appearance of a shy and retiring Edinburgh businessman. Wallace Mercer bought a controlling stake in the club, but was shocked at the state of things at Tynecastle.
The club had yet again been relegated. They had gone through this yo-yo process, and the quality of the staff was pretty poor. Any players of any quality had left the club. So the whole business had to be built from the ground back up again. The club was within days of closure.
Heart of Midlothian avoided closing its doors, and Chairman Mercer embarked on a high-profile campaign to keep Hearts beating. But his 1981 survival plan didn't even hint that in just 4 years, this club would have Premier League titles in mind.
But our intention is to try and retain an element of full-time football at Tynecastle.
It was joked that Mercer carried a card in his person which read, "In event of an accident, call a press conference." But his business flair was a godsend for Hearts.
I think I brought some business expertise to the party and some marketing skills. And we decided that we would go public on a whole range of topics.
I think there was a press conference every second or third day at the football club because he wanted Hearts to be in everybody's minds.
The first step was to appoint club captain Alec MacDonald as player coach. MacDonald had joined from Rangers in 1980, only to find things drastically different from what he was used to at Ibrox. Not enough passion, too much fashion.
I just couldn't believe it. You know, boys come in with bleached denims and string vests and It's unbelievable. The wireless was gone. It was like a disco.
It was a very different type of Saturday night fever that MacDonald wanted at Hearts. He had brought from Ibrox the discipline that had helped him win a booty of medals at Rangers. And after being appointed Hearts manager in 1982, he also brought Sandy Jardine in from his old club as his assistant. Jardine, like MacDonald, had been a winner at Rangers, but he too soon realised he was now starring in a different kind of movie.
The Hearts were short of money, the physiotherapists had left, and there was not a physiotherapist there. So how do you treat injured players, I said. He says, well, Stuart McLaren, he knows how to work the ultrasonic machine, so Stuart could use it. So I went through and Stuart says, Stuart, you know how to? He says, aye. Where is it? Oh, Peter Shields got it. He's one of his greyhounds. He was treating one of his greyhounds. It was things like that. I mean, you couldn't believe it.
Proof, if proof were needed, that Hearts had gone to the dogs. And yet their pedigree was never in doubt. MacDonald and Jardine were slowly beginning to put together a team which would retrieve the fans. Alongside youngsters like John Robertson and Gary Mackay were the experienced club captain Walter Kidd and goalkeeper Henry Smith. Sandy Clark was signed from Rangers and Craig Levine came in from Cowdenbeath. Joining them were Kenny Black, Neil Berry, Brian Whittaker and Ian Jardine, before John Colquhoun completed the jigsaw by making the trip along the M8 from Celtic. The picture was taking shape, and what it showed was one big happy family.
It was a family club. People really would help each other. We didn't have much at all, but what we had we shared.
Everybody spoke to each other, everybody got on with each other. There wasn't anything you didn't know about anybody. And there was a real happy atmosphere there, and it's important in any football club. But at that time, as I say, we had a monopoly on it.
Of course, there was still the little problem of the league position. You'll recall that they were sitting third bottom. But there was something stirring around Tynecastle. It all began with a draw against Dundee in October.
We went off from that match 1-1 thinking, well, it's a point in the end. But again, not realising the implication that it was about to start one of the most exciting periods in the club's history.
Exciting? Hearts were rocket-fuelled. In 2 months, they went from third bottom to second top.
I think once we had our top team on the pitch, I think that's when we started to get the better run of results. And conferences grew and grew.
Not that anyone in TV land had noticed, with televised Hearts matches as rare as finding vinegar in an Edinburgh chippy. This yo-yo club, whose main ambition just 4 years before had been to keep playing full-time football, suddenly had ambitions of a loftier kind. Ambitions that had their foundation in good old-fashioned hard work.
Well, the fitness level wasn't very good. So when I took over, obviously the training started. We got the training better.
We'd go to Gullin for pre-season training on the sand dunes, which was really difficult.
Murder. Absolute murder. You are being sick and being sick again.
We did pre-seasons that made you sick and then made you sick on top of your sick.
All I kept shouting was, "It's okay, lads, your plenty soup's ready for you."
Christ, I feel sick in there myself.
Hearts soon gained a reputation as being the fittest team in the league.
The pain of Gullin had worked, and Hearts were now rising from the ashes like a marooned phoenix who'd been forced to run up a sand dune countless times. On the 21st of December, a win over the St Mirren team, who had earlier whipped them 6-2, took Hearts to the top of the Premier League Christmas tree. It was an astonishing festive season in the East. A bright new star, a miracle rebirth, and wise men and women who knew their football were flocking to see the team.
So we were floating along, and it's the wee extra lift that the crowd give you as you're going to a game. It's a tremendous feeling. You're not going to get beat. You're not going to get beat. They score one, we'll score two.
We knew, come a Saturday, we could take anybody.
We felt then that we could definitely qualify for Europe and perhaps push all the way for the title.
Push for it. They stormed its very ramparts. A win over first-footing Hibs launched the new year of 1986, and a victory over Rangers in the Scottish Cup third round followed. In the title hunt, Hearts stretched their unbeaten run to 20. Top of the table with 8 games to go, the moment was ripe to re-record an old Hearts classic, with a bit of a foul twist.
honestly, it was so funny, so bad is the only way to describe it. Not the song. The song in itself is brilliant. But Marshall's the funky chicken champions, I think, was the line.
But before we go any further, let's have a word from our sponsors.
Marshall's, the chunky chicken champions.
Every 2 minutes it'd go Marshall's, chunky chickens, Marshall's. And we weren't involved in that part of the Marshall's chunky chickens, but to be involved in that for somebody that was a Joy Division fan was just too embarrassing for words.
Marshall's, the chunky chicken champions.
There'd be this bonus depending on how many records was sold. We got a chicken each, and that was the reward. I should have got more than one chicken because I knew all the words. So I don't know if somebody along the line, maybe after witnessing this programme, somebody at Marshall's Chunky Chickens will give me the other 2 or 3 chickens that I think I'm due for how much I put into singing that song that day.
So there were records to be made and to be broken. A win over Hibs in March meant they had gone a record 22 undefeated Premier League games in a row. The title was within touching distance.
We all thought, oh, we could win this league and we could maybe win the cup as well, but we would never have discussed it.
I suppose it's tempting providence. You just didn't want to say it in case that you were the one by saying it and by hoping for it that broke the spell of the run that we were on.
Now Black. That's for John Robertson, a great chance for Hearts. The opening goal.
Yet another win against Rangers in March set Hearts up for vital back-to-back matches against Dundee United. First up was the Scottish Cup semi-final. Hearts booked a Hampden final place courtesy of a John Colquhoun cracker before the 2 sides met again in the league.
The first game I really thought we were going to win the championship was when we beat Dundee United at Tannadice with about 3 or 4 games to go. John Robertson and Sandy Clark were absolutely sensational.
Robertson with a shot, oh what a goal!
And I've managed to connect with probably one of the sweetest left foots I've hit, and it just whistled in. But I think you can see from expression afterwards, it's more a surprise to me as everybody else.
Well, he may blow his cheeks on. I mean, it looked harmless enough initially, but watch his positioning and how deadly he can be in the finish.
In what was a late season first versus second clash, Dundee United found Henry Smith in sparkling form.
Superb save!
Before Hearts push forward again to double their lead.
Here's a great chance, he scored! 2-0!
Then another piece of Robbo magic put the result beyond any doubt.
There's no offside, this could seal it. Robertson must score. He must, yes!
That third goal, we knew we'd won the match there and probably knocked Dundee United out of the title race. And again, you see with the celebrations, it was a team one. Everybody's round and a huge heart support there, as I say, and we felt very, very close at that time.
And you're thinking to yourself, the double's on here. The double is on.
By now, Hearts were just 3 steps from championship heaven. Next up was Aberdeen, the first ever live televised Scottish League game. What's more, it was played on a Sunday. Something that didn't please the people at Tynecastle.
We wanted to keep the consistency of playing on a Saturday. And I remember that fixture vividly.
We felt it would put actually extra pressure on the players. So we didn't want the game to be live.
The Aberdeen game at Tynecastle had everything about it. It was the focus of attention all over Britain because Aberdeen were a hugely respected club under Alec Ferguson, great players on their side, and we were what you would term the young upstarts, and we went 1-0 down that day.
It's in the net after a valiant effort from Henry Smith, and Aberdeen are in the lead.
And it looked, for all intents and purposes, that we were going to have our first defeat. But again, John Colquhoun popped up with another great goal late on, 3 minutes to go. We salvaged another point, which left us still very much in control.
John Colquhoun for Hearts! And there's the spirit of Hearts for all to see.
John Colquhoun scored very late on in the game to, probably in hindsight, to snatch a point because I think Aberdeen were the stronger side on the day. But that never say die attitude had came and played a part, and the supporters had a huge part to play in that.
It was that attitude that had taken this team from also-rans to champions elect. With games against Clydebank and Dundee left, Hearts needed just 3 points to take the title. With expectations running high, were this Hearts team beginning to feel the heat?
The Clydebank game was a game that the pressure it was on was all put on by our own performances, our own results, and the belief that we were so close. And it wasn't a convincing performance from us, but roared on by the crowd. We got the break, and I was fortunate enough to score the goal that day.
Mackay. Will he go himself? He has! 1-0.
We just couldn't add to that. We come out with the 2 points, and we knew travelling to the last match at Dens Park that we required 1 point to win the championship.
Hearts had one hand and 4 fingers on the championship trophy. 1 point. Just a draw was all it was needed to secure this team's immortality. They were on 50 points, Celtic behind on 48, but 4 goals worse off than the Jambos. And so to Dens, Hearts' biggest match in decades. But in the build-up, all was not going to plan.
4 of the guys had to be sent home with the flu, which was we'd never needed to change the team. We'd been on a settled team, and as I say, unfortunately, Craig Levine couldn't play.
We still had their destiny in our own hands, and still had the ability to go and win it with the team that we got on the pitch that day.
There was a maroon invasion of Tayside that spring afternoon. If the team needed a 12th man, it was provided by the huge Heart support that travelled to Dundee.
There in the mass ranks, the confidence that they'll take the championship back to Edinburgh.
This is it. This must be our destination. This is where we've come to. We cannot let these lot down. We felt the league was ours, and it was ours. It was ours for the taking. A point wins us the Premier League.
Off we go, and if a scriptwriter had come up with an end of the season climax like this, I think it would have been rejected as being too fanciful.
Our aim was to go out and get an early goal and try and kill off everything. And we started very, very well. And then we felt we had a very, very strong penalty claim.
Pitch looks as if it's going to play very fiery. Sandy Clark, good run round, kills for a penalty.
While claims for a penalty fell on deaf ears, Hearts were listening in for news from Love Street, where Celtic were taking on St Mirren.
We've got somebody down at Paisley with a phone. If they score, they'll phone us at the side of the bench. But as you know, the way it turned out, Celtic rattled in a few goals, and then they didn't have a hearty phone.
So we goes in at half time, and it's 0-0. But I'm walking off at the bottom end, and this photographer shout across, "It's big man." Aye, what's up? Celtic are 4-0 up. I went, bollocks. He says they're 4-0 up. Oh, are they? Right, okay.
With Celtic guaranteed victory at St Mirren, this Hearts team knew what they had to do. Just get that 1 point. And so began the final 45 minutes of an incredible league season.
It's just a tousy game, nothing's happening, I've not a save to make. And of course then, looked at a big clock that they had them days, it's 4:20. Looked at it again, it's 4:30. Oh, Jesus Christ, has it stopped?
That stage, as we said, we looked good for the point, if not winning the match. But unfortunately, Dundee brought an Albert kid.
And really the last 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever it was, is something that will live with any Hearts supporter that was there, any Hearts player that was there for the rest of their lives.
Swinging in and swinging in very dangerously. There's a goal! Kidd has scored!
It didn't take long for the news of Kidd's goal to filter through to Love Street.
Now that must be a goal for Dundee. Sheer bedlam around the stadium. Well, you don't need to hear any more news than that. Dundee clearly has scored at Dens. And let's lift off here at Love Street.
We knew at that point it was slipping away and that we had to do something. Maybe in 20 minutes and 30 minutes we could impose ourselves in the game, but 8 minutes we couldn't.
What a marvellous substitution this has been for Dundee and Hearts. Looking slightly ragged, there's a great chance. They've done it! 2-0. A brilliant goal.
The second goal was a killer, that was it, finished. And it was, when I talk about we play together and we sleep together, this is when we cry together.
Seconds remaining, and there goes the final whistle. And let me repeat that Hearts apparently have lost the championship. They've gone all these number of games, 37 undefeated, and then suddenly on the last day, the last afternoon, the last 10 minutes of this championship, they lose out. Utterly cruel.
End of story. End of the run. End of title.
How low, how drained, how empty, how flat you felt, and as I say, you felt like you let every single fan that's ever supported Hearts down.
I remember everybody lying around and the supporters being on the pitch with us. And it's hard now still to think about it, to see their faces. You can still see their faces.
Hearts had lost the title on goal difference.
You know, to have gone so long and so far and have it snatched away to death is probably one of the cruelest things that can happen.
In normal circumstances, at the end of a season, you'd ask the players to go out and go to the supporters that had supported them. But quite rightly, in these circumstances, you couldn't allow that.
Someone had to acknowledge the grief of the fans. Wallace Mercer went to them, leaving the team to mourn in private in the dressing room.
There's nothing ever in football that would ever feel like that, ever. And only people that have gone through that would know what that dressing room was like.
We sat in that changing room at Dens Park, and Alan McDonald did exceptionally well, as always.
And then the manager came round and thanked us all. Said he was proud of us, which he was.
Of course, I go in to say, hey, look, positive next week. We've got a game next week. Let's, you know. So I get in the toilet. I'm filling up myself, you know. So it took me 3 times to come out and settle down and try and get that right. Come on, in. Let's get going. We've got a week. Get ourselves organised. But it was hard, but I would do it again.
The dream double was no more, but Hearts had to put the deep disappointment of Dens behind them and prepare for the remaining chance of silverware in the Scottish Cup final.
No, everybody gets a second chance, and we've got a second chance here with the cup final. So on the Monday morning when we got them all in, we sat them down, thanked them, congratulated them for their efforts they put in, and then started to try and lift them.
We believed that we could put the setback behind us and triumph over Aberdeen in the cup final.
Rising roar round Hampden Park is the anticipation of something like 60,000 throats getting ready for the first ever cup final between Hearts and Aberdeen.
We lost a very early goal to John Hewitt. We battled back. Both myself and Gary Mackay missed good chances just before the break.
Here's John Robertson with a chance, and he scored! Oh, it looked like in the net from here.
The gods were conspiring against Hearts. Again. A very bad week was just about to get a whole lot worse.
We lost a very early goal the second half again, but we kept pouring forward. Neil Berry hit the crossbar, and it just wasn't to be, and Aberdeen completed scoring with a goal, I think, from Billy Stark late on.
Oh, there's a third one. Billy Stark. 3-0 for Aberdeen, and that is the cup final well and truly finished, I think, as far as Hearts are concerned.
And then the frustrations came out. Walter Kidd got sent off late in the match for throwing a ball at one of the Aberdeen players, and you know, the team by that time had gone, the legs had gone, the spirit had gone, and we knew that it was going to be a season that ultimately would end up with nothing.
It's almost incredible to think they have done so much and won nothing. Well, won nothing for the record books, but won the respect of many people.
We're taking the supporters along this road where we're all looking to succeed together, to give Heart and Midlothian Football Club pride back, because it had lost a lot over the previous 20, 30 years. And unfortunately we weren't able to deliver. And that's something we'll live with.
And there come.
It had been a season of second prizes. But back in Edinburgh, the fans wanted to thank this team that had put the heart back into Heart of Midlothian.
And back at the Caledonian Hotel after the cup final, the scenes were unbelievable.
I don't think any of us could have foreseen the swell of support that would be outside the hotel. And I don't think any of us are ashamed to say, I mean, I know myself that emotionally I just lost it. And it was wee Alex was off bus first, carried above their heads into the Caledonian, and every player was doing that, was carried above their heads by the fans into the Caledonian Hotel. Amazing. And we just had lost the cup final.
Here were fans who'd had the heart ripped out of them, and we'd lost the league title in the last few minutes of the league. We'd lost the Scottish Cup final, and yet here they were treating you like heroes.
Yeah, I was very emotional. That was serious stuff. I think it was a greeting job again with me and Sandy up in the room. Yeah, I just couldn't believe it. You know, I really couldn't believe it with the supporters. They were absolutely fantastic.
The team that had come so close to an astonishing double would be influential at Hearts for many years to come. Sandy Clark, Craig Levine and the club's record goal scorer John Robertson all had stints managing the club. John Colquhoun and Gary Mackay, who holds the record for the number of appearances at Hearts, now work as football agents. After that season, Alec MacDonald and Sandy Jardine became Hearts co-managers. Jardine stayed on till 1988, MacDonald till 1990. Both now work at former club Rangers. Wallace Mercer called it a day as Hearts chairman in 1994, after an abandoned attempt to take over their rivals Hibs, and then moved into property development. Theirs was a story that ripped at their emotions. Each of them gave so much to the club during that amazing season, and the spirit that saw them bring Hearts back from the edge and onto the brink of glory still runs strong in the boys of '86.
It was an incredible season, and there was a great sense of pride that there's a team that had been nicknamed the Yo-Yo Club up and down had suddenly become title challengers, nearly cup winners, had gelled together tremendously.
It was a great experience to play with and train and work with a great bunch of lads. Every one of them was a gem.
And you think, how many of these people still love or have loved in their time what Heart of Midlothian Football Club has brought to their lives, and that will never leave us. The disappointment at the end is just a faraway memory, but the whole season's not. It'll live in the back of my mind for the rest of my life.
It still hurts. 20 years later, you bring back too many memories.
Yeah, and you wouldn't wish it in your worst enemy. But that's football. It's why we're in it, why we love it, why we hate it.
If we'd won it, we wouldn't have had half the column inches, or half the amount of people talking about us, or half the amount of interviews, or half the amount of media space that we've had because of what happened. And I would trade it all, every column inch, every interview, everything, to just get a goal with 10 minutes to go at Dens Park. No question. Because we deserved it.
Sadly, since this programme was made, former Hearts chairman Wallace Mercer has died.